The objective of this lesson is to learn about Python modules. So what is a Python module? Assume that you have written some functions that you intend to use later. For example, the function to calculate the square root that we wrote before. How do you use this function in another program? You have two ways. You can cut and paste the source code of the function in your new program, which would be very time consuming and inefficient. Or you can save your function in a file with .py extension and use the import statement to invoke that function. Let me show you an example how to use the import statement. I'm going to write two functions. The first function that I'm going to write is called add numbers, and the only thing that it does, when it is given two numbers, it will add them together and returns the sum of the two numbers. And the second function is multiply numbers, and the only thing that it does is multiplies two numbers and returns the result. I'm going to save these two functions in a file called my_math.py, and as you can see, if I run this file, nothing happens. The reason is, of course, that I have two functions and I don't have any main program to call these two functions. Now I'm going to close this and open another file to write my main program. Let's call it testmodules.py. Now in this program, I'm going to call my functions. I'm going to define two variables called a and b, and then I would say a is equal to 5 and b is equal to 8, and then I'm going to call my add numbers function and try to print it. When I run this program, it is obvious that I will get an error. The reason for this error is that while I'm on this file, and when I call the function called add_numbers, the Python system has no understanding what is add numbers, because those functions are not defined within the scope of this main program. And as you can see, the error says name add_number is not defined. What can I do? The answer is that I'm going to use import statement to tell Python that my functions are stored in a file with the name my_math. If I run this program at this point of time again, I will get an error. The reason for getting this error is that I did not explicitly tell Python that my function called add numbers is in the file called mymath. To do that, I have to say mymath.addNumbers. That basically means that I have a file called mymath, and in that file there is a function called add numbers. Now this time if I run my program, you see that I get the correct answer. Now let me go ahead and call my multiplying function. So this time I will say mymath.multiply numbers, and I pass two numbers to it, and if I run my program this time, then you see that I also get the correct answer. This approach may be too time consuming, because if you have many functions, each time you want to use that function, you have to put the name of the external file, put a dot, and put the name of the function. There is another format to use. To use this second format, you start with the keyword from, then you put the name of your file, which includes your functions, then you use the keyword import, then you use the name of the function that you want to use. If I run my program this time, I will get an error. The reason for that is that even though you imported the add numbers function, but you did not import the multiply numbers function. And with this format, Python only knows add numbers and has no idea what my math is. As you can see in the description of error, it says name mymath is not defined. So if I use this format, I have to explicitly specify which functions I am going to use. Now in this case, I have to add multiply numbers. Now again, if I use this format, I do not need to put the name of the file in here. Now if I run my program, you see that I get my correct result. The question is, what if I have many functions that I want to use? Do I have to explicitly type the name of these functions on the import statement? There is another format which you can import all the functions which are included in a file. All you have to do is put an asterisk in the place of the name of the functions. With this format, all the functions which are included in your file will be automatically imported. Now this time if I run my program, you see that I get the correct answer. Python includes many modules. For example, there is a module called math, and that module includes lots of mathematical functions such as sine, cosine, square root, log, and other functions. For example, let's say I want to use the square root function, and I want to calculate the square root of a number, in this case a square root of 4. If I print the sqrt of 4, which stands for square root of 4, I will get an error. The reason is that of course I did not import the math module. So what I have to do is on the second line I will import my math module, and if I run it again I will get an error again. The reason is, even though I imported from math module, but every time I want to use any function from that module, I have to explicitly qualify it by putting the name of that module first, put a dot, and put the name of the function that I want to use. So if I say math.sqrt, now my function runs correctly and shows me the result. If you do not want to explicitly mention the name of the module each time that you want to use a function, then you can use the second form and say from math module import sqrt function. If you do that, then you do not have to qualify your function, and if you run your function, everything runs properly. Now imagine you want to use a second function from the math module. For example, I want to use the sine function from the math module. If I run my program again, I will get an error which will tell me that the name sine is not defined. The reason is that even though I used the math module, but I did not explicitly import the sine function. So what I have to do, if I want to use it, I also have to import it, and this time when I run my program, everything is fine. Of course, I can always use a star in place of the name of the functions, and if I run my program this time, everything would run properly. So what do you know now? You know that a module is a file with .py extension which contains Python statements. You also know that a module can contain executable statements as well as function definitions. You also know that to include a module in your program, you use import statement by using the keyword import and put the module name after it. Here are different formats that you can use the import function. The first format is that you use keyword import and put the name of the module without the extension after it. And every time that you want to use a function which is included in that module, you have to qualify it by putting the name of the module first and put a dot and put the name of the function after it. The second format is you can start with the keyword from, put the name of the module, then use keyword import, and then put the name of those modules that you want to use. For example, suppose you want to use the sine and cosine in your program. So what you have to do, you have to say from math import sine and cosine, and then you can use those modules. Rather than the name of the functions, if you put the asterisk, that implies that you want to import all the functions which are included in particular module. And in this case, you can use any of the functions which are included in that module. Python has many standard modules, and to know more about these modules, you can refer to this URL and review these modules. So what did you learn in this lesson? You learned to use the import statement to invoke or call different modules.